Welcome back to Still No Studio. We're working on it, so welcome to my actual lounge. Sit back, relax, grab a cuppa. We've got some analysis to do. You gonna put that on a coaster, or? Leonardo DiCaprio. You might like him, you might not, but I don't think it's controversial to say he is one of the greatest actors of his generation. That graph about his girlfriend's ages is, not great. But swiftly moving on, I distinctly remember watching him win his first Academy Award for The Revenant in 2016 and having two thoughts. One, wow, I don't want to see that movie. And two, Leonardo DiCaprio hasn't won an Oscar. What's Eating Gilbert Grape, Romeo and Juliet, Titanic, Catch Me If You Can, Shutter Island, Inception, Django, Gatsby, Wolf of Wall Street. Really? And an interview with Leo. No, the other one will. Popped up on my YouTube algorithm the other night from around that time. A thought came to me about our beloved club. Because of course it did, I literally can't turn off. When they tell this story of Arsenal winning a major trophy, when you look at the records we've broken over the last few years, the consistency we've shown, the players we've had, where I would rank some of those players in some pretty crazy all-time lists, that there is something quite mid-2010s DiCaprian about our story. We are flying. 6 points clear at the top of the Premier League and joint top of the Champions League with no loss since August. 8 consecutive games with a clean sheet is a new club record. Only 3 players have scored against us so far this season and only 1 at the Emirates. It's November and we haven't even hit our acme. Or acme, it's Rohan's word of the day. I told him I'd put it in. Madueke has played less than 5 games of football. Odegaard just over 3, and Kai Havertz has played 30 minutes of football in 25-26, as well as others too. And of course, you have Jesus. Yeah, I know Arsenal are top of the league, but they're not actually very good going forward. Yeah, I wonder why. Merino! In last week's video, I gave my reasons why I think we'll win the league. But I also said I wasn't sure there'd been wholesale tactical changes. However, today I want to explore the changes that have been made, because they appear to be making all the difference. So after 17 games this season, 15 wins, 1 draw and 1 loss, what are the key tweaks, as I see them, behind Arsenal's record-breaking start? Mikel's philosophy, as we know, is to be kings of everything. And he used a phrase recently about Declan Rice, which I loved. He said he's becoming a total player. We spent a lot of time on this channel over the Arteta process discussing compliments, developments, pods, but maybe there's a utopian world coming into focus in the distance here, of a team, a system, a group of players who can truly do everything. Come to the stage, front and centre. Jurian and Ricardo. Shout out, Carell. Met him. Lovely energy. Okay, we knew the defensive numbers of these guys were pretty good. The room to grow was on the other side of the game. And they have. Big jump for Calafiori in terms of shots per 90 and XG per 90 totals this season. Timber also a fair jump from what was already a higher shot total than expected from him, to be honest, and he's got a jump in XG per 90 as well. This is all Premier League only. In other words, simply, they're both having over double the amount of shots and creating over double the amount of threats, actually nearly triple, this season. So something has changed. Calafiori is second only to Victor Gyökeres for total shots in the Premier League for Arsenal with 18, and Timber is 6th with 11. Calafiori is 18th in the entire league for shots, by the way, ahead of the likes of Šeško, Ekitike, and Joao Pedro. Could he chill?
Daddy, chill.
Nah. 2 notable quirks. Timber's shot distance has dropped significantly to a career low, as he seems to be getting to the box more for these ricochets and cutbacks, and Calafiori's had an almost 50% increase in long passes attempted, which checks with the eye test. Think of those lovely channel balls for Gyökeres in those goals against Leeds and Nottingham Forest. A smaller improvement, but crosses into the penalty area are up for Calafiori and Timber. But to be honest, we did a scouted episode on them both on the Cannon podcast. And probably my biggest takeaway from watching their crosses in isolation is explained by that golf club analogy that the GOAT, Clive Palmer, uses all the time. They don't quite have every club in their club thing. What is it? Developing crosses on the run, whipped crosses, that floated balls to the back post for Timber is kind of there, but Calafiori not really. There's room for improvement. I'm not asking for much, guys. Just be a world-class centre-back, a world-class full-back, invert, underlap, overlap, have no flaws in your game, and be our most threatening player, aged 24 and 23 respectively. Like, what's the issue? Finally, touches in the middle third and penalty area are up for Calafiori, and touches in our defensive third and attacking build-up outside the box are down, which makes sense. While for Timber, there's a small lift in the attacking third and penalty area touches, but the middle third has gone down, speaking to a slight difference in roles between the two, and per 90 shot-creating actions are up for Timber, and up basically 50% for Calafiori. So there's the numbers, but how are they doing it? To the heat maps. Timber against Palace and Forest in the exact same fixture, just a few months apart in the Palace game's case, and you can see this new freedom he's being afforded by Mikel, with activity and time spent in those half spaces and into the box, even into the 6-yard box. Calafiori is a little bit harder to judge as he played less consistently last year, but looking at his season heat map already, after 10 Premier League games compared to the 19 last year, you can see his range of influence appears increased, and it's all paying off. And arguably what's most exciting, especially in Calafiori's case, is I feel they've been given new license to construct attacks, which is different from being the wall pass or the guy making the unselfish run. Good example is Calafiori's first half against West Ham. Ball out to Trossard, makes that darting run in the channel, doesn't get it back, but the idea was there, the pass and move. Again here, receives the ball wide, knocks it inside to Zubimendi, and he makes the run in behind, ready to receive it, and it goes back. But he's still alive to it. And eventually, once the ball circulates to the right, this is the one where he gets that weak foot shot off against the post. In this situation, he finds himself in an unconventional position, and he just drives forward himself. No 1-2s here to get into the box and win as a corner. We've seen him with those shots in the box, finishing actions, creating chaos as the kind of end guy, but the difference now is he's beginning to be the guy who starts it all off. So that's how they've got those numbers. But why are they thriving? Why do we need the fullbacks to do this in this system? For me personally, the best way of explaining this Arsenal team at the moment is something like this. When X does this, Y must respond. If Zubimendi drops into the back line, then Eze must drop in to create a passing lane centrally and block someone's passing lane or whatever. If Calafiori comes inside, then the left winger needs to pull out wide to create that stretch across the back line. And we've seen this level of freedom before, but it's all very well telling your players to do that. If your number 6 or whatever can't hit a barn door, then it doesn't matter if he pops up in strange locations. It's ineffective. So to facilitate this kings of everything total footballer idea, you need a team full of players who are comfortable receiving from all angles, getting shots off both feet, driving into different spaces, counter-pressing, going over the shoulder. Yes, with individual quirks, but capable of being kings of everything. And it feels like we've landed on the perfect fullback pairing for that style of football. It's taken them up to this point, but they've now developed to a point where they can both come inside, shoot off both feet, pass, tackle, run. Almost everything you need for every phase of this total football. Maslow, Skelly and Ben White as fullbacks are slightly closer to specialists, and you do need that sometimes. But I think Timber and Calafiori are thriving because they're closer to the overall picture of what Mikel wants this team to be. They can truly facilitate what I think he wants to do. And you might reject that and say, well, I don't want my fullbacks having as much involvement and popping up in the same spaces as my left winger. I want separation. But one, may I remind you who won the Champions League last season? And two, I just don't think Mikel sees football that way, personally. In the same way that he spoke recently about not viewing the game through open play and set pieces and so on. It's about what spaces, where you're occupying, how you use the spaces. And you need 11 men to help. In this version of football, you can win the game from any position on the pitch, including fullback. These 3 moments are all within a few minutes of each other against Fulham. Timber unmarked because everyone's pulled towards Saka, so he has time to play this pass inside to Zubimendi, who then has his time and space inside that he wouldn't have otherwise had. Saka marked, Timber's your spare man, so he picks it up and drives inside, gets the ball over to Trossard, which was never on without him. Same again, double marking Saka, ball back to Timber, inside with a gorgeous pass, Saka plays in Gyökeres, he gets his shot off, we get a corner. Timber and Calafiori are developing into total footballers, and for the vision Mikel has for this team, they make total sense. But there's no such thing as a player with no weakness. So for true totality, you might have to dive back in to the compliments. You look nice today, Alex. Thank you. Rice and Zubimendi are the perfect complement, and it's genius from Mikel. Could Rice be marginally better at taking the ball on the back foot? Could Zubimendi be slightly zippier over longer distances? Absolutely. But these guys aren't created in a lab, and as a pair, they're everything we need them to be. Take an average Thomas Partey game. He was deep, threading balls, usually to the right, and popping up into that right-sided pocket to support the attack, basically. Very good player on his day, but in terms of the zones he occupies, you know where he'll be. However, take an average Zubimendi game. He's a lot more all over the place in the best sense. Picking up pockets of space, yes, centrally and right, but also filling in gaps on the left, higher up, more central, wider, and so on. And it's not wrong or better, it's just different. No, it's definitely better. It's certainly better for Rice. Partey was a brilliant player, but this just gives him that 5% more freedom that Partey didn't quite give him. They have the capacity and mobility to work almost like a pendulum, both controlling deep build-up and both impacting the game up high in different ways. Not so much one or the other, as was the case for large portions of last year, with Rice so often in situations that I didn't feel quite suited him. And because of this, I think it's allowed us to get that 5, 6, 7% or something, I can't quite quantify it, better at the game within the game, working in tandem with the coaches and within the midfield to work out, okay, what's the job, who's better suited to what role, and how do we execute? The job against Palace, as I saw it, was to gain access to that line behind the 5 in front, get the ball into Eze and hurt them because they've committed 5 forward. Palace did an excellent job of screening that space, Pino, Kamada and Wharton in particular, and Rice and Zubimendi had a job. Zubimendi was to stay within the block to occupy them, and Rice was to stand just behind the block or drop off to the left, ready to drop in if the space was created to progress wide, or to quickly carry forward if you got that combination centrally, with Gyökeres pinning the centre-backs. And both their jobs suited them down to the ground, even if there was a bit of teething in the first 20 minutes. This situation, Eze dropped in, knocks it back to Saliba and goes back to the 10, and Zubimendi spots an opportunity. Kamada is attracted back to the block, but he stands still, receiving off Gabriel in space before Kamada can react. Again, he's standing still, he's receiving on the back foot, probably best for Zubimendi, not for Rice. And certainly something I don't think Partey thrives at. Kamada jumps back in, realising his mistake. Eze is now in space. Arsenal play it through Saliba to Eze. We're away. Against Burnley, it was a different game within a game. With Burnley in a 5-4-1, Rice was more of the quarterback, spraying balls. More time on the ball, facing play. We know about Rice's weight and choices of pass when facing play, and he can be worried less about breaking lines. It suits him. Zubimendi's role here was the more off-ball one, as I saw it, tasked with drawing Florentino out, so Timber could make that run in behind into the space, as we see in this situation, and also played out a number of times that game. Against Atletico Madrid, different again. Zubimendi, less quarterback this time, more passing option inside, with our centre-backs holding the build-up. Rice was doing a nice dual job here of pinning Barrios from jumping up, but also occasionally dropping outside the block to try and create some space up the pitch for the likes of Miles and Martinelli to exploit. It's horses for courses for the game within the game. And I love working out what Rice and Zubimendi are doing, especially because they complement each other so well in a different way to Partey and Rice. What they're actually doing is probably far more complicated than I can understand and put across on YouTube. But when I try and watch and match the job to the player, it seems to make sense to me. And between them, they've got every base covered. And all this leads to Rice actually creating more in advanced areas this season than last season, despite spending less time there. Rice had 4.36 passes into the final third last season, compared to 5.62 this season. His progressive passes are up from 6.11 last season to 7.19 per 90 this season, and he's already at 7 goals and assists, which is a per 90 increase on last year. For a player with arguably the best ball striking technique in the squad in certain senses, it does make more sense for him to be behind the ball a bit more than he was last year. Although it's not to say he can't be there in certain moments. It feels like between them, with Eze, with Odegaard, with the Waneri, Arteta's found a better balance of control and complement. And there are a couple of other tweaks, but they feel a bit more personnel related. Eze is the nominal right 8, creates different dynamics, and it's a different option. While Odegaard tends to be the player dropping out of the block to progress, Eze stays more central, almost like a true 10 a lot more in possession, to play to his strengths receiving between the lines. The interesting quirk here is that I think it's arguably harming Saka a touch to have that creative force further away from him, ending up in situations like this against Newcastle a number of times with Eze more central than a Martin Odegaard who might be more like here. We know the numbers and what our eyes tell us. We know what Odegaard and Saka have beyond the page, as it were. And I do think our off-the-ball work, winning it high, those high turnovers, will return once Odegaard's back in the team. But it's interesting to see a different interpretation of that right 8 role. And would we have scored that Palace goal without Eze more central? Almost certainly not. And then, of course, you have Gyökeres. Gyökeres stretching defences has really helped to create chaos and a different dimension to this team. A lot of our defenders specifically are finding balls into him early, which I love and switches up our distribution. And it adds a way of attacking we simply didn't have last year. In terms of long passes to find us 30 yards or more, there is only one member of our squad who is playing less long passes than they were last year. Gabriel Martinelli. Sack him. I also think Gyökeres has opened the door to Leandro Trossard playing a lot more, because with a stretcher in behind, it makes sense to have players who thrive inside off the last shoulder in those kind of smaller spaces. With more of a false 9 type like Havertz, runners in behind like Martinelli makes sense, but Trossard's small space quality can thrive when Gyökeres is ahead of him. There's a few others. I think Gabriel's on-ball role has changed. I think our selection of ball progression is much better, and we're working angles better through the pitch. And I'm sure there are other tweaks that my stupid zero ball knowledge brain can't compute. But I come back to it. I don't want to underplay these tweaks at all. They're happening, and they might be the decisive factor in us going on to win something this season. But there is a wider thought here too. When I was planning this video, one of the tweaks I wanted to talk about was shots. And I wanted to investigate it because I felt we were having more shots than last season. We're not. Total shots per 90, exactly the same. Total shots on target per 90, actually down from last year. Average shot distance per 90, basically the same. XG overall, a touch higher this year. Our possession averages are basically the same. I saw people talking about our switch numbers increasing, but they're the same as last year. Our goal and assist per 90 is actually down by 0.21. Our pass completion has actually gone down by 1%. Our passes into the final third are up a fraction. We're having less yellows and reds and a few more penalties. Does that help? Other than our defensive outcome numbers going up, which I would put down to getting better and more intense at what we already do, rather than wholesale tactical change, because we're still in a 4-4-2 mid-block, we still play a high line, we still commit in the same way. In the grand scheme of things, I stand by what I said. Not that much has changed. So what is this? Why are we seeing such seemingly drastic difference based on 90-95% of the same input? And, by the way, the same level of injury crisis we always seem to have. People never want to hear this when you're losing, so I'll say it when we're winning, because I think it might be better received. Your opposition, what they're doing, their story, to a huge degree, define your season. If you're facing the treble winners or the historic 4-in-a-row City side, probably just before you're truly capable of winning the league, there's not loads you can do. You can go 16 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss, basically the form we're in now. If they go 19 wins, 4 draws and no losses from December, what are you going to do? If you're peak United in 03-04 with Scholes, Van Nistelrooy, Ronaldo, Rio, Giggs, Keane, but another team literally does not lose games, what can you do? If you're a striker this year and you're up against Erling Haaland and you're kicking yourself because you're not winning the Golden Boot, I mean, don't kick yourself because that's not going to help, but what can you do? I understand why, but we as fans are so guilty of just focusing on ourselves. If we're bad, it's because our coach is terrible and our players are terrible, nothing to do with anyone else. If we're good, it's because we've finally cracked the formula of football and we're never going to lose another game and everyone else is terrible. And of course, I'm caricaturing, but it's never that simple. And I've basically intimated this before when we fell short, and the comments are full of, doesn't matter, mate, you got to beat what's in front of you, stop making excuses, all that stuff. And of course, we are responsible for our performance, but that is only a part of the story. If we had had exactly the same season so far, but Man City had won those 2 games against Brighton and Tottenham at the beginning of the season, they'd be on the same points as us. And how would it feel? I'm telling you, we'd all be watching and making videos going, oh, injury crisis, and we haven't fixed our open play XG stuff. But the mood's very different because of what they've done. If Liverpool hadn't had that horrific run, how would we feel? And it brings me back to the beginning. When Mr. DiCaprio won his Oscar, did he suddenly become a brilliant actor overnight? Was his performance in The Revenant just a completely different level to anything he'd ever shown in his career that far? I didn't watch it, so you'd have to tell me. But I doubt it. But what I can tell you is if you look through his nominations up to that point, there's a pattern that you and me are probably quite familiar with. 1994, he's basically a kid. He's 20 years old. It's 22-23. He's up against titans of the industry. Tommy Lee Jones, Ralph Fiennes, John Malkovich, Pete Postlethwaite. Schindler's List's just come out. Philadelphia with Tom Hanks. What can a 20-year-old Leonardo DiCaprio do? 2005, he's up against peak Jamie Foxx as Ray Charles. 2007, he's up against Forrest Whitaker in The Last King of Scotland, where bro gained 22 kilos, learned to play the accordion, learned Swahili, and won literally every single award we could have. Now you bottled it, Leo. That's your fault, mate. Get him out of my Screen Actors Guild. Nearly a decade later, 2014, he's nominated again. It's Matthew McConaughey in Dallas Buyers Club. That is literally, like, arguably one of the greatest acting performances of all time. What can you do? I'll tell you what you do. You try and get better, and you go again. And when he finally won his Oscar, he didn't give some mad speech about his acting journey, which he could have. He spoke about climate change. And I felt like he was sort of over the Academy Award thing, even if he definitely wasn't. And in the analogy, I will not be. Winning that first Premier League, I will be on the open top bus, top off, if I can be. But I felt that sense from his speech that it was kind of long overdue. And for Arsenal, I kind of feel that too. This is a team with records and players and law and culture and everything that warrants a Premier League and has warranted a Premier League for all the work we've done. But you don't moan too much. You just keep going. And eventually your year will come. Don't be fooled by the narrative or the table or the media. This isn't total reinvention or finally Arsenal are good. We've been good, and we've been good for a very, very long time. There are tweaks. We have changed things. But this season so far almost feels more like just reward for all the work and all the bad luck we've had up to this point. It's just taken a few touch-ups and a little bit of poor opposition form for everyone to see what I think a lot of us have seen throughout this process. And just like it was for mid-2010s Leonardo DiCaprio, award season is coming. Thanks so much for watching. If you like The Different Knock, you can support us on Patreon and get ad-free early access to each video for just £3 a month. Or for one-time support, you can buy us a coffee. Links are in the description.